Hello people of the internet, this is KaijuNoir, here with something a little different from the usual routine. Now if there's one subject I love just as much as giant monsters, it's of course giant robots. Mechs have always appealed to me in the same way that Godzilla and his kaiju brethren have, in that both act as titanic beings made with the sole purpose of destroying their targets in the most awesome way possible, for the sake of our own entertainment. However, what makes the likes of Gundam and Macross different from their monstrous counterparts is that their stories always revolved around the people behind the machines. The idea that one or more human individual can hold that much power in their hands can serve as both power fantasies to the young at heart, as well as a means at delivering engaging and dramatic stories that can possibly lead to philosophical questions about morality and the human condition. After enjoying this subgenre of science fiction for so long, I feel the need to pay my respect to these mechanized behemoths with my top 15 giant robots in fiction. Number 15. Gide King. While today we pride ourselves on the vast amount of anime and anime-related merchandise that is at our disposal, mostly due to our access to the internet, the children of the 70s and 80s had a completely different story to tell. However, having limited access to Japanese media certainly didn't stop them from experiencing the greatness that is Gide King through the anthology series Force 5. Right off the bat, we have a mech whose skull chest serves as the actual head to the Daiku Maru, a battleship-sized robot dragon. Along with the usual chest lasers, melee weapons, and I-beams that have been seen in previous super robots, it also has a secret technique called the face-open attack that can be used to surprise enemies by blinding them, then unleashing a barrage of projectiles. When Gide King gets into physical contact with his foes, it can also use its paralyzer attack, where it electrocutes them through its horns. However, it wasn't until the 2005 remake Gide King Legend of Daiku Maru that the writers took advantage of the robot's combining gimmick by giving Gide King new powers, weapons, and transformations. While his two shows didn't impress me all that much, Gide King did stick out just enough for me to put him on my list, which goes to show just how far an excellently designed mech can take you. Back in 2011, director Matthew Gratzner created a concept teaser for a proposed live-action Gide King movie. Given what little information the trailer gave us, it looked like the story was going to be changed again, yet the skull-faced robot remained just as cool as ever. Let's hope the project gets picked up in the near future, and can perhaps inspire a new line of classic robot adaptations. Number 14. Jaguar. Oh, come on! You know that as a hardcore Godzilla fan, I couldn't resist putting him here. Yes, his powers defy all laws of physics, yes, he looks like Mecha Jack Nicholson, and yes, his mother never really loves him. But you know what? That's exactly why I love him. While most Godzilla fans enjoy him and his antics out of a sense of irony, I genuinely like every aspect about him. Godzilla vs. Megalon was one of the first films I saw from the franchise, and the moment I witnessed the smiling defender in all his nonsensical glory, my heart just jumped with joy. Growing up with the franchise during the mid to late 90s, I never really saw him as any different from the likes of Power Rangers and Beetleborgs. Even today, I still see these absurdities as charming and almost earnest in a way, which is ironic given that his basic concept was flat out stolen from Ultraman. Going past his outlandish design, what I see is a robot with a strong motivation to protect his creators and a willingness to put his artificial life on the line no matter what the cost. His true potential was eventually reached in the recent ongoing comic book series Godzilla Rulers of Earth, where Jaguar used his size-changing abilities to take down several of Godzilla's strongest enemies. Whether he's exploding monsters from the inside out, or just taking a stroll to his theme, you can always count on good old JJ to give one hell of a performance. Number 13. Tetsujin 28. More popularly known as Gigantor here in the States, Tetsujin is the granddaddy of all humanoid giant robots. Under the command of boy detective Shotaro Kaneda, the two set off on numerous adventures to protect post-war Japan from evil scientists, terrorist organizations, and other giant robots. What really drew me into Tetsujin 28 was the recent 2004 anime adaptation, which took the story in a darker and slightly more realistic approach, and really hit the head on the nail that Tetsujin despite being used to benefit society, can potentially be just as much of a threat as the other relics of World War II if placed in the wrong hands. In terms of his design, Tetsujin is the very definition of classic. In an age where mechs are often equipped with lasers, cannons, heavy-duty armor, more lasers, swords, transformations, even more lasers, a simplistic approach can feel like a breath of fresh air. Who needs weapons when you can deliver an oh-so-satisfying punch to the face? Much like Gide King, Tetsujin also got the American teaser trailer treatment from the creators of the 2009 Astro Boy film. Unfortunately, I doubt the project will ever come to fruition after Astro Boy's rather mediocre performance. Ah well, at least we still have the 2005 movie, right? Right? Oh. Oh god. Oh god! Oh well. No matter what adaptation he's in, he's quicker than quick, stronger than strong, and ready to fight for right against wrong. Number 12. Tenjin. Now, unlike most robots on this list, this bot is special to me on a more nostalgic level. Back when I was a wee lad, my family would celebrate my birthdays at Boomer's Family Fun Center. Among the go-karts, miniature golf, and pizza, there were tons of arcade games, and my favorite among them was hands down Virtual-On Cyber Troopers. What really set the series apart from the rest of the giant robot games at the time was the twin-stick control system. Being able to control a mech in the same fashion as the fictional pilots on screen was like a dream come true, and looking back at it, actually makes this overly simplistic control scheme make sense. When it comes to the actual mechs, Tenjin was always the most fun to play as. Acting as the starter character of this fighting game franchise, Tenjin was the balanced all-around fighter that players can quickly become accustomed to, with its decent speed, strength, and firepower. Not only do I love his speedy and aerodynamic design, what sells the overall package is his gun sword that can make any Final Fantasy character weep in fear. Due to the popularity of Tenjin, this mech pretty much became the mascot of Virtual-On, as he appeared as the central figure of each game, and has even gone through several redesigns over the years. Overall, in terms of video game experiences, none can hold a candle to being behind the controls of this blue beast. Now come on Sega, let's see a next-gen Virtual-On, damn it! Number 11. Ison. Another video game robot, this one comes from the long-running crossover series Super Robot Wars, specifically the installments that included original non-licensed mechs, due to being free of any legal licensing hassles. Among the new robots, there was something that struck a chord with me when it came to the Ison and its successor, the Ison Rice. What really made it unique was that it was nothing like the slow and powerful super robots, nor the fast and agile real robots. The Ison could pack quite a punch with its triple-barreled machine cannon, shoulder-mounted missile launchers, and its heat-based horn. If that's not enough, Ison's finisher involved getting up close and personal by stabbing his arm-mounted stake into the enemy unit and unload barrels upon barrels of ammo, completely decimating the machine. Ison was a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield, and was always my most vital unit. Whenever I play any of the Super Robot Wars games that don't feature the legendary mechs of old, I can always count on the Ison to get me out of any tight situation. Number 10. Gao Zhai Gar. Imagine if you were to translate the bulky aesthetics of the Megazords into animation and infuse it with the hardcore testosterone-fueled fury of Dragon Ball Z. That, my friend, is the essence of Gao Zhai Gar. Everything about this mech is just brimming with over-the-top nonsense in all the right ways. You have your protagonist Guy Shishio, whom I like to refer to as the $6 Million Goku, who combines with a lion transformer, then combines with a stealth bomber, a drill tank thing, and a bullet train, for some reason, to form the King of Braves, Gao Zhai Gar. By the way, have you ever wondered why villains in anime don't attack the protagonists while they're transforming? Well, amazingly, in the case of Gao Zhai Gar, it's capable of producing a tornado of energy that keeps enemies at bay during transformation sequences. Once combined, Guy's strength, stamina, and epic shouting can allow Gao Zhai Gar to raise force fields with his left hand, shoot off his right hand like a projectile, and use his Heaven and Hell attack to rip apart the cores of his enemy and have it gloriously explode behind him. On a more ridiculous level, Gao Zhai Gar uses a device called the Dividing Driver in order to warp the ground wide open in order to fight in the middle of the city while avoiding any damage whatsoever. To top it all off, he gains a power-up in the form of a giant robot who transforms into a giant hand to fit onto Gao Zhai Gar for the sole purpose of wielding a gargantuan hammer taller than the mech itself. Like Gide King, Gao Zhai Gar is another example of a title robot having more of an influence on the viewer than the show itself. Despite the series' setbacks, Sunrise and Takara created the ultimate robot to cap off their Brave series in the most flashiest and over-the-top way possible. Number 9. Magus. When living in Jersey and fighting villains from afar, you gotta find first gear in your giant robot car. That car in question is Magus, Mechanized Earth Guard Attack System. Had the mech never have been sent back in time to the early 21st century, it might have been a decent weapon capable of defending the Earth against an alien invasion. But when placed into the hands of a grease monkey / video game addict like Coop, it becomes an unpredictable one-man army capable of saving the world while also destroying half of the city on a regular basis. With Coop's obsession with video games and wrestling, Magus is able to pull off death-defying maneuvers and deliver great physical beatdowns. The hilarious thing about Magus is that due to Coop's constant screwing around with the machinery, Magus always featured a different set of weaponry in each episode, some of which may be familiar to longtime fans of the mech genre. Magus' unpredictability and sheer stamina makes it a formidable foe against the galaxy's most ruthless villains, including Bruce Campbell of all people. To finish it all off, this is a robot with style, the kind of which that would make any hot rod enthusiast green with envy. You dig it, I dig it, we dig it, and even chicks dig this one crazy mech. Number 8. Big O. Cast in the name of God, Big O is not guilty. Whenever this mech is summoned by his operator to do battle against the wicked forces of Paradigm City, it always carried a level of class and elegance. Its armor, rivets, and stovepipes seem to have been inspired by industrial-era technology, similar to the anime version of Giant Robo. Much like Giant Robo, you can always feel the weight and gravitas of the Big O's action, as if God himself was delivering punishment on a grand scale. But what puts Big O on a whole other level in comparison to GR is its wide array of weaponry. In addition to its powerful piston punches, the Big O can utilize its rocket-propelled anchors, machine guns in his chest, Gatling guns in his arms, and of course, the powerful Chrome Buster, an attack inspired by Super Robot Red Baron. Finally, there's the aptly named Final Stage, an attack so ludicrously devastating that it can only be used once before the weapon falls apart. Whatever this mech's origin was in the show, it was truly a robot designed to withstand any attack and counter it with a force 10 times as great, all while looking badass in a pink helmet. Whatever the situation, whatever the danger, there's only one phrase on your mind when he comes on the scene. Big O! It's showtime! Number 7. Mazinger Z. While Tetsujin 28 started the trend of giant robots, Mazinger Z was the mecha that solidified the status of this particular subgenre of science fiction. Now, what can I say about this revolutionary creation of Go Nagai's that no one else has said already? Well, to put it simply, everything that I love about the previous robots on the list, and the genre in general, originated with Mazinger Z. Now, in many cases, genre trope starters like Mazinger Z can feel retroactively stale and cliché over time, due to having so many other stories borrow from it, and tarnish what made the original property so unique. However, even among the pantheons of mechas, Mazinger Z still feels unique out of the bunch. With this lone robot, the pilot can wield the power of either a god or a devil, and crush armies of mechanical monsters, with weapons including, but not limited to, the Breastfire, the Rust Hurricane, the Photon Beam, and that irresistibly iconic Rocket Punch! In the recent remake Shin Mazinger Z Impact, The title Mecha gained an insane boost in power, an enhanced yet subtle redesign carried over from a previous OVA, and the God Scrander. With the God Scrander, Mazinger Z can perform the almighty Big Bang Punch. Truly, Mazinger Z stands as an example that whatever shiny new bots may come our way, there's no replacing the original. Number 6. The RX-7802, aka the Gundam. At the tail end of the 70s, when super robots were all the rage, one man had an idea that would take the mecha genre into a brand new direction. Despite opposition from both his friends and colleagues, Yoshiyuki Tomino went ahead and created Mobile Suit Gundam, the first giant robot series to take place in a space operatic setting. With that came the birth of the real robot genre. Unlike the super robots, the Gundam was a more complex machine that required detailed amounts of focus into the inner workings of its design. No longer could you have a robot in the series magically pull a sword out of nowhere, transforming while morphing its body, or fire off a fist and expect it to fly back into place. Although the Gundam was more realistic, it still contained elements from its older super robot counterparts in that, like them, it was still able to dish out a hefty amount of damage, almost incomparable to any other mobile suit at the start of the series. Heck, even mobile armors have a tough time taking a crack at it. Later in the show, the Gundam becomes even more of a threat to the Zeon forces once Amuro gains his psychic Mu-type abilities, allowing him to predict when and where enemies would attack and retaliate with extreme prejudice. In comparison to the dozens upon dozens of Gundams that would follow in its footsteps, the original still remains to be one of the most versatile in terms of weaponry. Over the course of the series, the Gundam manages through countless battles across numerous terrains, with beam swords, beam rifles, the beam javelin, the hyper bazooka, the head-mounted Vulcan guns, and the Gundam hammer, which ironically enough was a mandated weapon that was added in by the show's sponsors in order to sell toys. With all these and more, the Gundam became the shining beacon of hope during the One-Year War, and eventually became arguably the most well-known giant robot in all of anime. Number 5. Heisei Mechagodzilla. Yup, a Godzilla fan placing Mechagodzilla amongst his favorite robots. What a surprise. Of course, if I was going to include Jet Jaguar, then there was no way I was going to skip over Godzilla's mechanical doppelganger. Sorry, Mogira. Mechagodzilla, in all of his incarnations, has always been a beast of a bot, both figuratively and literally. While Mazinger Z may have coined the term Kaiju, aka mechanical monster, it can be safe to say that Mecha-G may stand as the greatest Kaiju of all time. You can't go wrong with a character that has the cold-hearted determination of a machine, combined with the raw fury of a monster. In many ways, he represents the best of both worlds. Now, why did I pick the 1993 incarnation? Simply put, I find him more similar in appearance to super robots. His stature is more humanoid, his jetpack doubles as its own vehicle like Mazinger Z's Jet Scrander, and his plasma grenade fires from his abdomen, an attack you'll see later in the list. Outside of these similarities, Heisei Mecha-G contains enough firepower to take on not one, but two of the most popular kaijus with no sweat under normal circumstances. His heavily plated armor can withstand the firepower of Godzilla's atomic breath, as well as Fire Rodan's uranium beam. Aside from the plasma grenade, Mecha-G can fire more lasers from his eyes, mouths, as well as missiles from his shoulders and hands. Finally, there's its shock cables that can paralyze its foes, leaving them wide open for a full-on assault. And this is his power without the Garuda attachment. Once combined to form Super Mechagodzilla, his firepower is increased along with his flight capabilities, making him the master of circle strafing. This is the kind of offense that the Super X's wish they had. Oh yeah, as the cherry on the sundae, he can perform a variation of the rocket punch in the manga adaptation of his movie. With all this and more, there's not a doubt in my mind that 1993 was the year that provided me with the definitive king of the mechanical monsters. Number 4. Tetsujin, aka the Megazord. Looking back now, no robot could have more nostalgic value to me than the original Megazord from Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It was the show that not only emphasized my love for giant monsters, but introduced me to both tokusatsu henshin heroes and mechas. As a combining robot, you can't get more awesome than 5 machines based on prehistoric animals that combine to form a tank, then to have that tank become a badass warrior that can summon a sword from the sky. It's as if Zeus said to himself, "Damn, now that's a dude who deserves a weapon. You know what? I'm gonna give him one, free of charge." While just a simple robot that was used as a means to an end, the Megazord's original Japanese Super Sentai incarnation, Tetsujin, was the physical form of a god that looked over the tribes of the Zyuranger's 6 protagonists 170 million years ago. He, along with each of the guardian beasts that form him, have their own wills and help the Rangers through advice and orders to help them become true heroes. Now, how do you make this mech even more awesome? Have it combined with Mechagodzilla! Once combined with the Dragonzord, or Dragon Caesar in Japan, you end up with the unstoppable Mega Dragonzord. Or for you Sentai fans, Jutei Daijujin! You know what, now that I think about it, the Japanese seem to be better at this naming gig. You know what, screw it! Once Jutei Daijujin is formed, he can perform both the Kaiser Burst and the Empire Attack. Finally, Jutei Daijujin can combine again with King Brachion to form Ultimate Daijujin! Enough said. Whether you know him as Daijujin or the Megazord, this was one mech that served as an inspiration for a generation of kids, and lives on as a symbol of their childhoods. Number 3. Getter Robo. Open Get! Change Getter 1! Now here's a robot I'm sure many of you have never heard of, unless you somehow came across the OVA Getter Robo Armageddon. Now, in my opinion, Getter Robo is one of the most underrated mecha franchises in America. Why I have such high regards to this mech out of other obscure robots, due to its major contribution to the genre. Getter Robo has the distinction of being the very first combiner robot, so without Getter Robo, we wouldn't actually have the likes of Voltron, Devastator, or even the Super Sentai mechs. The funny thing about Getter Robo's transformation is just how unrealistic it's pulled off, as the 3 jets that comprise Getter Robo more or less morph into their respective body parts thanks to the magic of animation. However, the OVAs do explain this through nanotechnology. Good old convenient magic tech. Now, what makes Getter Robo my favorite combining robot, as well as my favorite super robot, is that the 3 jets are not limited to becoming 1 robot, but 3! You've got the default bot Getter 1, which specializes in flying, Getter 2, which is more agile and fast on its feet, and Getter 3, the tank-like powerhouse. Each form features their own unique arsenal and attacks to use against the evil forces of the Dinosaur Empire and their army of Mechasauruses. Hey, remember when I mentioned that there was a robot that possibly inspired Mechagodzilla's plasma grenade? Well, check this out! While I could have filled a third of this list with robots from the rest of the Getter Robo franchise, like Shin Getter, Neo Getter, New Getter, and Black Getter, the reason I chose the original is similar to why I included Mazinger Z on the list, in that no matter how much its successors build on the original, they wouldn't exist if it weren't for said original in terms of their basic core concepts. That and the original Getter Robo had a cape, and if superheroes have taught me one thing, is that adding a cape can result in a whole new level of badassery. If you ever wanted some variety for when you're eviscerating dinosaurs, demons, and mechs, there's no better choice than Getter Robo. Number 2. Wing Gundam Zero Custom. By the mid-90s, the people behind the Gundam franchise wanted to expand beyond the original continuity and create a string of shows that each took place in their own alternate timeline, allowing new stories and concepts to spring to life in a way that couldn't have been done before. One of these shows was New Mobile Report Gundam Wing. While the show was only a modest success in Japan, over in the West, it became the series that introduced the millions of wide-eyed newcomers to Mobile Suit Gundam. While Power Rangers was the show that introduced me to giant robots, Gundam Wing solidified my passion for the genre. Due to the show's popularity, an OVA was produced called Gundam Wing Endless Waltz. In it, all 5 of the main protagonists' Gundams were heavily redesigned, leading us to the Wing Zero Custom. The original Wing Zero was already badass enough with its twin buster rifles that were capable of wiping out hordes of lesser mobile suits in one fell swoop. but the moment I caught wind of this redesign, I instantly fell in love with it. The design traded in the traditional primary colors with white and navy blue, and replaced the armored thrusters with angelic wings. While the redesign foregoed the Neo Bird mode along with its shield, it was able to use its new wings for swift aerial movements, as well as shield itself from both enemy attacks and for entering Earth's atmosphere. You wouldn't think that simply changing a robot's backpack would make that much of a difference, but for me, it really sealed the deal, making it my favorite mech design. You could even say they make the mobile suit look graceful and, dare I say, beautiful. Of course, this version of the Wing Zero is still equipped with its shoulder machine cannons, a beam saber, and the overpowered twin Buster Rifles. When combined, the Buster Rifle's power becomes capable of destroying several layers of a heavily underground bunker. In fact, it's so powerful that the recoil from multiple back-to-back shots are enough to damage the suit itself. Finally, there's the Zero system, which allows the pilot to predict multiple outcomes in battle and predict the best course of action for complete victory. However, due to its prototypical condition, it was never fully completed, nor tested, so whoever uses this mobile suit is greatly susceptible to severe mental damage, which can lead to insanity due to the overload of data being sent to the brain. Once in the mentally and physically capable hands of Hiro Yui, the Wing Zero was able to achieve the full extent of its capabilities in both the TV series and the OVA. For years, the Wing Zero Custom has been my favorite robot of all time, and while that is no longer the case, it most certainly has a place in my heart for its nostalgic value, its design, and most certainly its sheer firepower. Number 1. The Tequila Gundam. When it comes to this list, I cannot think of a less offensive robot to choose from. Who couldn't remember this truly unbeatable mech? To this day, I can still remember this truly unbeatable mech's one and only appearance, where it... Hell yeah! There's not a doubt in my mind that the ass-kicking God Gundam, known as the Burning Gundam in America, would be at the top of this list. As the first Gundam series to take place in an alternate timeline, the show's director, Yasuhiro Imagawa, really took Mobile Fighter G Gundam in a wild direction. For instance, the control system. You think the Jaeger pilots look awesome with their one-to-one movements? Think again, as the Gundams of this series pull off the type of moves that the Jaeger pilots can only hope to achieve. Due to the God Gundam having a martial artist like Domon Kasho as a pilot, with a heart of fire and a burning passion for fighting, the mobile suit is able to perform a fusion of multiple fighting styles and blend them with its wide array of weaponry and even invent a few techniques that the mobile suit wasn't even designed to perform. Now, as the successor to Domon's previous mobile suit, the Shining Gundam, it had some pretty big shoes to fill. How can you follow up to a mech that could perform both the Shining Finger and the Shining Finger's sword? Well, to outdo its predecessor, the God Gundam can perform the Bakunetsu God Finger, which can be used as both a physical and a ranged attack. In many cases, it's used for an amazing finisher called Heat End, where it grabs its opponent from the chest, lifts him up in the air, and releases energy into the suit, exploding it from within. However, it is replaced by one of the best attacks I've ever seen in a mecha series, the Sekiha Ten Kyoken, an attack where the God Gundam focuses all of its energy from the God Finger into both of its hands and releases a giant ball of energy. This, combined with the fact that the mecha can also transform into a golden hyper mode, means that we've got the mecha equivalent of a freaking Super Saiyan! Near the end of the series, the Sekiha Tenkyoken becomes more powerful to where it can transform into a giant hand made to grab enemies before exploding, and even more spectacularly powerful when performed with Domon's friends and allies. All in all, there's no beating the God Gundam as my all-time favorite giant robot. It rocked back in Japan circa 1994, it rocked in America when the show aired in 2002, and it most certainly rocked today, here in an age where we now have such a large gallery of these amazing metal warriors. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed this personal look into the mecha genre. Until next time everybody, take care. Gundam Fight All Set! Ready, go!